Welcome to the reality check you did not ask for but absolutely require. Let us cut through the performative nonsense because watching the global stage right now feels like watching a toddler play with a loaded firearm. You have headlines screaming about downed drones and exploding facilities in the Middle East, while the administration tries to distract you with social media threats and artificial fantasies. If you are looking at these headlines and thinking about day trading the volatility, you are already dead in the water. The market hates uncertainty, but it hates amateurs who think they can time a geopolitical meltdown even more. We are looking at an AK-130J gunship reportedly operating in the Persian Gulf and a regime in Iran that acts like it has a winning hand while holding nothing but broken cards. Do not call these military maneuvers accidents, because in the world of high-stakes capital, nothing is ever just a coincidence. While the noise is cranked up to maximum volume, I am sitting here reminding you that the only thing more dangerous than a global conflict is the arrogance of an investor who thinks they are safe because they follow the news. If you cannot explain the fundamental economic impact of a closed Strait of Hormuz to a 12-year-old, you are just gambling with your life savings. Look at the numbers, because numbers are the only things that do not lie. The 10-year Treasury yield hitting 4.63% is not just a statistic, it is a flashing red light for anyone holding long-duration assets. We are seeing interest rate cut expectations evaporate into thin air, because inflation is not just sticky, it is becoming the permanent wallpaper of our economic reality. You want to talk about the brutal truth. The truth is that complexity is a status signal for people who want to feel smart but stay poor. Everyone loves to debate the strategy of the administration or the next move by foreign powers. But successful wealth building is the most boring, tedious, and uninspired process on the planet. It is not about finding the next hot stock because of a gunship deployment. It is about keeping your head when the people in charge are clearly losing theirs. If you are feeling anxious about the state of the world, it is because your financial foundation is probably built on speculation rather than discipline. I see people panicking about Venezuela or the situation in Cuba, and they immediately start looking for ways to hedge through complex derivative strategies. Stop it. You are not a hedge fund manager, and you do not have an institutional trading desk. You are an individual trying to protect your future from the fallout of decisions made by people who probably do not even know your name. The lesson here is simple, yet most people will ignore it because it does not provide the dopamine hit of a winning trade. You need to own assets that survive chaos rather than assets that rely on stability. When the world starts burning, the market tends to punish leverage. So if you are trading on margin or betting the house on sectors sensitive to global supply chain disruptions, you are begging for a margin call. This is the part where people expect me to give them a secret tip on what to buy. I have $150,000 in assets, and I am not doing anything fancy because fancy is for people who want to lose money. I am keeping my cash position healthy because when the inevitable liquidity crunch hits, you will want to be the person with the dry powder. The administration is creating a weapon of mass distraction with their public threats and their intense rhetoric. But the real story is written in the bond markets and the rising costs of energy. You are watching a theater of the absurd where one day they are screaming about an invasion of Cuba and the next they are talking about building luxury skyscrapers in Dubai. It is a masterclass in inconsistency designed to keep you from looking at the balance sheet. Do not fall for it. Focus on your own personal balance sheet instead. Ask yourself if your portfolio can handle a 20% drop without you crying on social media. If the answer is no, then your strategy is broken, regardless of what is happening in the Middle East. The geopolitical situation is a constant background radiation of risk that you must factor into your asset allocation. If you are overexposed to regions that are turning into powder kegs, you are not an investor. You are a gambler who got lucky for a few years. Let us talk about the concept of the arsonist who pretends to be the firefighter. You see it in the foreign policy of this administration where they create the conditions for a crisis and then act surprised when the fire starts. From the Strait of Hormuz to the energy markets, they are playing a game of chicken that you are the passenger for. How do you protect yourself against this? You do it by ignoring the narrative and looking at the mechanics of the market. The market reflects the truth. Eventually, even if the politicians keep lying, the price of gold is rising, the price of energy is volatile, and the trust in fiat currency is being tested. These are the signals that matter. Stop reading the propaganda from the regime conduits and start looking at the flow of capital. When the U.S. 10-year yield is rising and inflation is hovering near 4%, you do not need to be a genius to know that your purchasing power is under attack. Do not let the noise of the day distract you from the trend of the decade. I see young people on social media obsessed with the latest AI hype or the latest crypto pump. They ignore the fact that the underlying geopolitical stability is required for these assets to perform. When the floor drops out from under the world order, these speculative bets will be the first ones to get liquidated. That is the brutal truth that nobody wants to hear because it implies that their current path to wealth is unsustainable. I am not trying to be a doomsayer. I am just being a realist. Reality is a harsh mistress, but she is the only one who will tell you the truth. If you are listening to this and you are still checking your stock app every 5 minutes because of a headline from the Middle East, you have already lost the game. True wealth is built by people who have the patience to let their money work while the rest of the world is busy tearing itself apart. The discipline to do nothing while others are panicking is the most powerful weapon you have in your financial arsenal. You want to be free? Then accept the fact that being boring is the price of admission. There is no shortcut. There is no magic formula. There is only the consistent application of sound principles in an insane world. Let the politicians play their games of distraction with the threats and the empty promises. You should be focused on your savings rate, your tax efficiency, and your risk management. These are the only levers you actually control. The geopolitical theater will always exist. It is a feature of the human condition, but your reaction to it is entirely your choice. You can choose to be a nervous wreck who reacts to every tweet. Or you can be a grounded individual who understands that markets move in cycles and that the best strategy is to be prepared for the unexpected, without needing to predict it. The fact that an AIC 130J is circling the Gulf is a serious issue for global supply chains. It will impact the cost of goods and it will put pressure on inflation. If you are not factoring this into your long-term planning, then you are not doing your homework. But do not mistake this for an excuse to go into panic mode. Panic is expensive. Panic is the reason why most people sell at the bottom, stay the course. But ensure that your course is actually built for rough seas. If you are holding debt, reduce it. If you are holding too much cash, deploy it wisely into stable assets. If you are over-leveraged, deleverage immediately. These are the basics that people forget, because they want a shortcut to riches. There is no shortcut to sustainable wealth. There is only the grind. And if you are too lazy to do the work of building a robust foundation, then you deserve the volatility you are about to experience. Look at the administrators of this country. They are failing to manage a coherent strategy for the world. Do not rely on them to save your portfolio. You are your own primary financial planner, your own security guard, and your own last line of defense. The sheer level of incompetence displayed in the recent diplomatic efforts is staggering. They are trying to dictate terms to countries that have moved on from American hegemony, and the result is a world that is becoming more fractured and more dangerous by the day. Your job is not to fix the world. Your job is to thrive within it despite its flaws. If you look at the history of the last century, you will see that markets have survived wars, depressions, and geopolitical collapses. They survive because humans keep trading, keep innovating, and keep looking for value. The trick is to be on the right side of those trends, and the right side is rarely the side of the headlines. Keep your eyes on the long term, ignore the daily drama, and remember that for every dollar you save during a time of chaos, you are buying freedom for the future. The cost of this complacency is high, but the cost of the wrong reaction is even higher. I am not here to tell you everything will be fine, because the world is messy. I am here to tell you that you can be fine if you stop acting like a child who is easily distracted by shiny objects. If you cannot explain your investment strategy in simple terms to a 12-year-old, then you are just gambling. This is a rule that you should apply to every single financial decision you make from now on. If it sounds complex, it is likely a lie. If it sounds like a get-rich-quick scheme, it is definitely a lie. Keep it simple, keep it boring, and keep it disciplined. That is the only way you survive this nonsense without losing your mind or your money. The world is moving through a massive shift in power, and the old ways of thinking are being challenged. If you cling to the status quo, you will be left behind. You need to be adaptable, but you also need to be anchored in the principles that have always defined success. There is no substitute for hard work, and there is no shortcut to long-term value. So when you see the next headline about an AIC 130J or a secret meeting in the White House, just breathe. Look at your portfolio and ask yourself if you are still aligned with your original goals. If the answer is yes, then hold fast. If the answer is no, then you need to reassess. But reassess based on data, not on the hysteria of the moment. The market is a mirror of our collective anxiety. And right now that mirror is showing a lot of fear. But fear is also an opportunity for those who are prepared to act with logic when everyone else is acting with emotion. Do not be the one who gets caught on the wrong side of history because you were too busy reading the propaganda. Be the one who understands the underlying logic of the market. That is how you stay ahead, that is how you maintain your independence, and that is how you build wealth that actually lasts. This is the reality of the situation. No fluff, no fake enthusiasm, just the hard truth. You are in a high-stakes game, and the rules are changing. Play by the rules that work and ignore the distractions. That is all you need to do. It sounds simple, and it is. But simple does not mean easy. You have to be disciplined enough to stick to the plan even when the headlines are screaming for you to do something else. If you can master that, you will be miles ahead of the average investor who is currently being shaken out of their positions by the latest manufactured crisis. Stay awake, stay cold, and keep your focus on what actually drives value. The rest is just noise. And noise is for people who do not have a real strategy. Be better than that. Be the one who stands still in the middle of a hurricane because you know that your house is built on a solid foundation. That is the essence of true financial freedom. It is not about the peak of the market. It is about the peace of mind that comes from knowing you are prepared for whatever comes next. Keep your eyes on the horizon, ignore the daily mess, and build your wealth with the same boring, tedious, and disciplined approach that works every single time. I hope this serves as a wake-up call for anyone still thinking they can outsmart the market during a global crisis. You cannot. You can only survive it by being prepared, And preparation is the opposite of reacting to the news. It is time to get serious about your financial future because the world is not getting any less complicated and your portfolio is not going to manage itself. So take control, be consistent, and stop looking for the easy way out. There is none. There is only the path of discipline, and it is the only one worth taking. Stay strong and keep building. You have the potential to grow your wealth even in the face of this absolute insanity. You just have to choose to be the one who is in control, the one who is not distracted by the noise, the one who is not scared by the headlines, and the one who is not seduced by the complexity of the gamblers. You are smarter than that. At least I hope you are, because if you are not, then this conversation is pointless. Go do the work, look at the balance sheets, and build your future. That is all for today. Stay grounded, keep your head clear, and do not let the noise of the world bankrupt your future. If you are still listening, you should know that true capital preservation is a silent game. It requires saying no to almost every opportunity that claims to offer massive returns for minimal effort. When the yield curve is behaving the way it is right now, you are witnessing a transition that will define the winners and losers of the next 10 years. Look for companies that produce real value. Things people need regardless of whether there is a peace treaty or a war declaration. Energy is the baseline. Agriculture is the baseline. Infrastructure is the baseline. Stop chasing the shiny objects that the algorithm wants you to click on. When the U.S. military deploys assets like the AIC-1 130J, they are managing risk. You should do the same with your money. Stop betting on binary outcomes. Start betting on resilience. If your portfolio is not built to withstand a sudden spike in oil prices or a drop in global shipping, it is not a portfolio. It is a collection of hopes and dreams, and hope is not a strategy. Discipline is the only thing that separates the people who will be eating steak in 2030 from the people who will be begging for a bailout. I see too many of you worried about the president or the parliament of Iran. These are just actors in a play you have already seen a dozen times. Focus on your cash flow, focus on your debt, focus on your exit strategy. Do not let the fear porn make you make irrational decisions. The market does not care about your feelings. It does not care about your politics. It only cares about the math, and the math says that if you are not disciplined, you will be liquidated. Keep your eyes on the prize and leave the drama. For the people who enjoy losing their money, it is a simple life and a simple strategy, but it works better than any high-frequency trading algorithm you can find on the dark web. Stay boring and stay wealthy. Because boring is the only thing that lasts in an insane world. Trust the process, not the headlines. Trust the data, not the speeches. And most importantly, trust yourself to have the discipline to ignore the things that do not matter to your long-term financial freedom. The world will keep turning, the gunships will keep flying, and the markets will keep fluctuating. Your job is to remain unmoved by the chaos. That is the ultimate form of financial maturity. It is the only way to win in a rigged game. So take this advice or do not, but do not come crying to me when your complex strategy fails. Because the truth is that you were warned. This is the end of the road for the amateur gamblers and the beginning of the journey for those who value discipline over excitement. Keep that in your head next time you feel the need to chase a trend. Because of a breaking news story, stay disciplined, stay focused, and keep the main thing, which is your financial independence. Nothing else comes close to that. So sleep well knowing that you have a plan that does not rely on the sanity of the people in Washington or Tehran. That is true power, that is true control, and that is all that really matters in the end. Good night and stay clear of the noise. You have a wealth to build and no time for the circus. Build it well and ignore the fools who think the circus is the show. It is just a distraction meant to keep you poor, so do not let them win. Do not give them your attention, and definitely do not give them your money. Keep your wallet closed and your mind open to the boring, tedious, and essential truth that discipline is the only path to the freedom you claim to want. And if you cannot handle the boredom of that path, then you are not ready for the destination anyway. So stay in the game, stay in the seat, and enjoy the long, slow crawl to wealth. It is the only way to guarantee that you end up on the winning side. Stay smart and keep your head above the water. The chaos is only a problem if you let it be your problem. So make sure it is not. That is the final lesson, and I am done here. Do the work or suffer the consequences. It is really that simple. Goodbye.